Recording. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Theo Black.
And I'm Sarah Black.
And here we are. It's November 1st, but we're finishing up our October stuff. We're going out a little bit on a whimper here, I think. We didn't... What? Did I say a bad thing?
Well, I just think the whimper was more like diary and land than...
Gosh. Okay, let's hear it then about this one.
You really didn't like the 2004 Dawn of the Dead.
Nope. I mean, it's a better made movie than those movies, but it was way less interesting to me.
God, nothing tops Land of the Dead for like, please make this stop happening to me, for me.
This was that one. This was like partway through Dawn of the Dead. Spoilers on this movie, by the way. We're going to spoil.
So this is the 2004 Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead.
However, we will likely also be
spoiling many other movies, anything
that are related to the George Romero series, and maybe even, who knows. Anyways, but yeah, no, like halfway through this movie, I checked out. I was like, I can't handle this. I hate these close-ups. I hated everything about the way. No, that's not true. I was really annoyed by all these. Hey, look at this shell from this gun hit the ground. Thanks, Zack Snyder. I don't care.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay, so Dawn of the Dead, the 2004 version, is the zombie apocalypse hits and people retreat to a mall. It is the same story and yet different. And so I guess I'm going to start this off because Theo hated it. I didn't hate it.
I didn't hate it, but I was very nice.
I would easily watch it before watching Land of the Dead ever again. There were different kinds of people in it. I could tell the characters apart. It had that over Diary and Land for sure. So what I want to say about this movie is that it worked for me when it was an action film, which is funny because I'm not big on action films. It didn't work for me when it was trying to be a horror film, and it was trying to be both at the same time, and that was a problem. I like the whole opening sequence. I like the bit where she's standing outside her house and she sees like people running in and out, and there's a tableau. And then there was this funny moment that to me almost like it's an unfair criticism, except that it like encapsulates a little bit of the problem of the movie to me to a degree. She wakes up after crashing the car. Ving Rhames jams a shotgun in her face and says, "Say something," to prove that she's not a zombie. I understand that shotguns are more close range than like a rifle or a sniper gun, but these are fast zombies. Why isn't he standing 20 feet away asking her this question? And that goes to kind of, I think, what everybody tends to criticize Snyder about, which is looks over substance.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of stupids that the movie is filled with. Like, it has Ving Rhames doing the Ken Foree characters, like, My Brothers Aren't Here, but where it's like sad and tragic and slow in the 1978 film, it's more like, but I gotta get to my brothers. Oh no, what's going on with my brothers? And it's like, yeah.
Ken Foree makes a choice in the original, not Ken Foree, Ken Foree's character makes a choice in the original Dawn of the Dead to leave with these people because otherwise he'll likely just die. And that's, I think, any number of people could make any number of choices, but that's more interesting than sort of occasionally being like, I want to see my brothers. And it's just like, kind of comes off as stupid as opposed to like him being more realistic about it. I don't mind. It would be different if there was one character acting that way, but all the characters are stupid.
Right. So then they go to the mall, and now that we don't have external action happening, which is what kind of carried the beginning, lots of zombies and stuff. We do internal conflict, and it does not work in this movie. Conflict is people yelling at each other. The security guys want to keep the mall to themselves, which for one thing is unrealistic, and for another thing, it's so unmotivated. And it's worse when later the security guy becomes a good guy, and it's just like, and that's where the movie to me like, I like that external. The only real horror aspect of the film that I liked is the pregnant lady whose baby dies inside of her, so she and the baby become a zombie. Like, that is horrifying. That is real horror. But so you have these kind of characters who are at odds because we need conflict in the story, not because there's anything motivating it with the character. And this would be permissible to me if it were a fast moving action film. Same with some of the really dumb dialogue. There's some of Ving Rhames, like I just want to get to my brother. If the movie kept moving like that, I wouldn't care as much.
Yeah.
But the movie slows down and starts giving you these long, slow indie horror shots that are unjustified by what that movie is, because it's trying to be a remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
And then, so everybody gets over being aggressive with one another and they start to chill out. And because movie, they become friends, I guess. And then they say, we really got to get out of here. And they say that because this is a remake of Dawn of the Dead, not because it makes any sense. Because in Dawn of the Dead, there were like 3 of them and you could see they were getting bored out of their minds. They had a helicopter in the 1978 version. In this 2004 version, it's like there's a bunch of them and they seem to be doing great. So, but after that, we get back to the action and things are moving again. And suddenly our security guy is a good guy. And I don't know why, but I don't care as much because things are moving. So that was kind of, that's the whole movie to me. It's like, and then, they start doing things and they're shooting propane tanks and And do I really like that much? No. But is that what worked for me? Yes.
I basically agree with everything you just said. Like, I really have very little to say about this movie. And honestly, I even think that if it were not for the fact that I was so annoyed by this movie, I would probably have liked it more than basically all 3 of the later Romero movies, even Survival of the Dead, which it probably is more interesting things in it, but it just looks so bad to me. The thing is, this movie looks better than any of those 3 movies. It's just that
it looks better than Land on some level, but you have issues with the filmmaking, it sounds like.
I have issues with the choices more than the filmmaking. I don't think all 3 Land looks the best of the later 3 Romero movies, but they basically all look bad to me. They look digital, and they look digital in a way that I don't like. I think some people are fine with it. So this is personal preference, but it also, a lot of the shots aren't terribly well composed. Like, there is good stuff in some of those movies, even Land, I think, but it's this movie in Dawn of the Dead, the one we're talking about, there is more style. And I appreciate that Zack Snyder is trying to imbue it with style. I just don't understand his choices, because here's close, we're in an action scene. Here's a slow-mo close-up of the gun. It's like a video game, kind of like we're getting a cut scene in the middle of our action, and it just throws the pacing for me. And the action is the part, and the thing is, the action is the part that I liked the most, and it annoyed me. So if I'm trying to be a little more, aware of my own self, even though I think I'd put it below all of the other movies we've watched as a part of our themed, October binge or October Romero stuff. Even though I liked it the least, it's probably better for basically anyone else than maybe all 3 of the last Romero movies. Maybe not Survival. I don't know. It's a bit of a pick your poison kind of thing. All 4 of them have weird, they were weirdly fit into different niches. Like, this Dawn of the Dead is action horror. Land of the Dead is action horror, but it's weirdly derivative. Dawn of the Dead is derivative of Dawn of the Dead, but it doesn't actually feel necessarily that derivative of anything else. Diary is found footage, and Survival is actually doesn't feel derivative like the others do. Anyways, I basically, there wasn't a lot to hold on to with the characters. I actually like the characters in Diary of the Dead more. I get your point that they're harder to tell apart because they're all college students, but you have the professor in that who's this weird pompous guy. You have the guy with the camera who has to keep filming, the girlfriend who's trying to get stuff done. Different characters are...
And that's where you stop, because you cannot tell any of the other guys apart.
Well, no, you can. So Elliot is the one who's nice and helpful and doesn't really care. There's the guy who thinks that the guy holding the camera is a jerk. So he's trying to help the girlfriend and actually trying to help them survive. Yeah. I mean, these are not deep characters. They are bad characters. I just think that of the two of them, again, Diary fits into an interesting. I have a thing with Diary, and it works for me. And Dawn of the Dead, it's also like in the original. Here's my last point. In the original Dawn of the Dead, Andy, I think it's Andy is the character's name, right? I think that's Ken Foree's friend. Anyways, our first guy who dies, like he makes a mistake and he's being too much, right? He's being a little stupid. He is one character being stupid. Ken Foree and Our Lady are both more or less competent, and then the other guy is kind of weird. He's a little bit of a douche, but he's not being stupid. He be stupid. He is stupid later.
Right.
And that kind of works with the pacing, what the movie's doing. All of the characters in Dawn of the Dead are stupid.
Yeah.
Like in the new Dawn of the Dead are stupid. Maybe I'm being a little unfair, but like
I think you're being a little hyperbolic.
I'm being a little hyperbolic, but like Ty Burrell is an asshole, and so he dies after he does assholey things. Like, and that is a character thing, you know. I think it's Matt Fewer is, you know, bit on the leg or whatever, and like so he's just this nice guy who has to die. Like, and then our lead nurse lady is Nurse Lady, you know, and like she's like her and the guy Jack Bohr or whatever, the guy who was on Medium, like they're the ones who are not stupid, but like and maybe Ving Rhames and Andy before he dies, like they're not so stupid, but like all the other characters, like Mekhi Phifer's character is not telling anyone about his wife.
Yeah.
And like in a movie, if there were one character doing that, I could believe it. Like I could get behind it, but there's just too many characters doing stupid things or like kind of are just their stereotype. So it's not any worse than Diary or Land. I'm definitely not going to say that, but like it doesn't, maybe it's better, but it's not better by much to me. If it is, I was so annoyed. I was so annoyed by it.
We just have to table the Diary versus to a certain extent. Cause I'm going to say like right now, Diary had a bunch of white 20-year-olds and one older guy that you keep naming. Like that should be something we're really proud of. Like there's like a slightly older white guy.
Well, I don't mean it to sound like I'm proud of it.
Whereas like Dawn of the Dead 2004 has like a pregnant lady and two.
It has a much better the cast and all that is much better. No, I agree. Like there's more there in that way.
Well, and that's where if it had just been a straight up, to me to go back a little bit, I think the derivative stuff is definitely wearing on me too, because you and I don't know if we'd done any different like non-Romero zombie movies if we'd watched 28 Days Later. I mean, we watched like 2 non-Romero zombie movies, and one of them was really fun because of how different it was.
Yeah.
But like to a certain degree, these were feeling like superhero films where it's like everyone has to show that the zombie apocalypse has just started. It's like the same, you know, superhero movies get stuck showing the origin story every time. I feel like we get stuck showing the origin story of zombies every time. And it's just not that interesting. Like you like do something different with it.
Well, like the first three movies are all the same formula, but they twisted it just enough so it doesn't feel that different. And then and then the derivative feeling in the later 3 Romero movies, Land, Diary, and Survival, it just feels like we've seen this already, even though. Well,
in both the original Dawn and Day, the zombie apocalypse has already happened and they're dealing with it. And in Survival, I think as well. Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's the National Guard. It's already, they didn't they kind of re-showed it in Survival, but like that's the kind of thing where so that just gets inherently boring as far as I can tell. Like no one is doing anything too interesting with that story right now. And then Zack Snyder, the writers, whatever, trying to do like Dawn of the Dead, the 78 version has such a specific tone that it felt for me, it felt like it was going wrong when they tried to match that. And that happens all the time too, though. Like we were talking about Coraline recently, which is adapted from a book. Like whenever you either remake something, if it's a book or if you're remaking a movie, there's this problem where you hit certain plot beats, but then because you change things, you're no longer motivating them by what happened before. It's motivated because it's based on this other thing.
Totally. So the whole middle section of the new Dawn of the Dead where they like start to get tired of it. Like that's motivated by the first Dawn of the Dead, but it doesn't work in the new one. Like,
yeah, and they didn't know how to do character stuff. I mean, so it's like you get a montage of music and everybody becomes friends, and to a degree they do that with the original, but there's way more setup and more, and they're not so aggressively against one another for movie plot reasons. So you're not starting. It's more like it's as if Day of the Dead ended with Joe Pilato suddenly being a hero. Like it's more like that in that way. So yeah, I kind of wish they just made it more actiony and not bothered with the.
I pretty much agree. It's the characters and the. I mean, it. You know, there's.
Yeah, sorry, I remember one more thing I
agree. The characters, the stories just wasn't really there. I mean, there's worse stuff out there. It just, you know, it was fine. It wasn't very good.
Yeah.
The action was the best part, and I just wish they'd make different choices with how they were filming the action scenes. And yeah.
Well, the other problem that I think you and I have been dancing around a little bit, and it even comes up because we were talking to our father, and he was talking about how desensitized you are and me are compared to him because of just growing up seeing more stuff. The problem with that is that movie makers think that we aren't. So you have like scenes where like zombies are getting backed up by a car, and it just is meaningless almost. I mean, those are zombies. Like there isn't much to it. Whereas when we watched the original Dawn and Day, like we appreciated the gore in that because it was so artistically done.
Yeah.
So I almost wish like people making violent, gory films now, like it's not shocking to see people die on screen. It just, it isn't. I mean, either you're the kind of person who is shocked by that and therefore doesn't want to see it and is not in the audience anyway, or you're someone for whom they've seen this 30 times. Do something. Don't make it real. Make it look cool. Make it look.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying make violence look cool, but you know what I mean. Like if you're doing a zombie movie, make your zombies look interesting. Make their deaths look interesting.
Yeah, and I mean these are also just movies, so we don't need to revel in the violence exactly. But yeah, make it look cool, or it depends on the tone of the movie. Even, and I'm thinking specifically of a movie that I don't want to name to spoil anything. But there's a movie recently, last couple of years, that came out. Like it's not unusual to see what happened in that movie, but it's all about the setup and about how you get to that spot. So it becomes shocking because of the story and just you may never have seen it that way.
Yeah.
We didn't mention two things, one of which is the music, which bothered you, and I also didn't care for.
Well, that's just because Zack Snyder's use of music has bothered me since Watchmen, which I guess was probably after this, which is where, I mean, a lot of, I really don't like when a montage, that movie's later, but when a iconic music of a certain era is used in place of, I don't know, story.
Yeah.
And he did that in Watchmen, and he just did that at the beginning here. And it just, but then also he had metal at the end. It's like the music didn't really match. Like it was really like a zombie action film. And then at the end, there's like death. So make the zombies more like death metal. Go make it like that belonged almost with Return of the Living Dead. It was very, very strange choices. But I mean, it was, you know.
Yeah, and the one thing I did want to call out that I thought was actually really neat was the Andy character so there's a gun shop like just on the other side of the street down the block from the mall, and eventually Ving Rhames, our policeman, becomes friend with Andy because they're like basically they have whiteboards and they're using them to like talk to each other, and they're playing chess, or you know they're talking about escaping together, and like it's you know it's interesting to sort of and eventually once Andy dies, like he puts it up with blood, like he's repeating the motion, which is cool. Like I wish, like I don't need we just watched the Romero movies. There is some social commentary in them, of course, but he was just making movies and having fun. And it's not that Zack Snyder wasn't having fun or any of the people working on it weren't having fun, but it's imbued with this interest in being sharp or cool or edgy or something, as opposed to like having fun.
Yeah, I agree.
It's weird where like you have a moment that's fun, like the Andy and Ving Rhames character, but then you also have Ty Burrell being an asshole, and I don't
But then,
know.
and you also have those long, slow shots, like we're
Yeah.
in a more of a horror film, and it just doesn't. There's not much there.
There is not much there. Sorry,
And Theo's critique of this film involves a long yawn.
This is also we're filming this November 1st, which is fall back, or what's it called, daylight savings,
You should
whatever.
have gotten an extra hour of sleep, is what that means.
No, but we were up late watching something, so we did. I don't know. Anyways, it's
Anyway,
fine.
so I mean, I guess that ends our zombie binge until. I mean,
Yeah. Do we have any closing? We should have some closing thoughts on the whole thing, I guess.
I mean, I kind of could, as bored as I am a little bit with these origin stories, part of me wishes we were doing another month of it just to get different angle. Like I wish we were doing 28. These are ones I've seen, but it's been a while. 28 Days Later, The Signal, Pontypool, some of these other zombie movies.
Well, I want to watch.
Kind of compare.
I mean, we could potentially do that in December. We could potentially just keep watching them and try and talk about them, next month or something. We could add on one of those, every so often, I think it's been pretty fun. Like, it's really interesting to see what I'm going to consider the decline in the Romero movies. It's sextology or whatever, since there's 6 of them. I don't know. Like the decline, like the first 2 in my mind are the best, even if the first one might be one of the better ones, more for like interesting historical relevance. But like those are the 2 ones that I like the most and are most interesting. Day is still good. It's a fun movie. It just loses some steam. And then the later 3, all coming in the 2000s, just really peter out for me. And I have a fun way of looking at Diary, and then Land and Survival are, Survival's got something going on. Land has ideas that I kind of like. I don't know. It sort of peters out. But with all of that, it's, one of my favorites is The Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Is not connected, to George Romero, but was, I think, the producer or something. Anyway, so it's sort of in an alternate universe. We have a multiverse now. If we're going to stick with our comic book references, and I like the zombie genre, and I'm getting more of an appreciation for it, and I'm more curious to go back and see some of the other movies that might have been made about zombies, like what were some of the copycats of Night of the Living Dead that either did it better or worse or more interesting or whatever. I'd be curious to go back to like the 70s or I guess it would be the 70s to see that, or because I know there was a resurgence in with 28 Days Later and stuff. So I'd be interested in those 2 periods, kind of to see what was going on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how many, I know it's not the only one, but I don't know how many series are directed by one director that way. But then, part of what I'm curious is to see other people tackle it. Because, Return of the Living Dead was really good because it was such a different take. Anyway.
Yeah, well, there's some more in that series, I think, though, as it looks just from the posters like they become trash, like bad trash real quick. But who knows?
Yeah.